And we will start with the most recent stream that happened today on Tuesday, and that is the Sony State of Play. They took 20 minutes and discussed a bunch of games that are being announced, some that were getting, I guess, updated release dates or different types of gameplay trailers. So why
I'm
don't
also got status updates as well too, but we'll get into
Yes,
that.
yes, absolutely. So why don't we just dive right into it? Do you want to do updates first? Do you want to just get to the ones that were announced?
I think we'll just kind of play it by ear.
Okay.
One of the big announcements that kicked off this Sony presentation was one hell of a way to start, and that was Tekken 8.
Yes.
Just it was an in-engine sort of thing, no life bars, no meters, so no real substantial information on how this is going to play. But it was just one of those things. It was just like, yeah, this is what a fight's going to look like, and I was just like, wow, did not expect them to start off with a banger like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tekken 8 was teased at Evo this the last month. I remember, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think people were thinking we're not going to hear anything about that from maybe until next year. So, but they showed it off here, and that's great. No really no announcement about a release date or anything, but just said stay tuned. So, my guess is that they're going to probably show it off more at the Game Awards. My guess.
Yeah, either the Game Awards or they might have a more meaty trailer for Tokyo Game Show, which takes place later this week. So maybe they might have something towards the end of this week. We'll have to see.
Okay. Yeah, that is that's possible. That's possible. Sure. All right. What do you think we should talk about next?
Well, uh, so this one was one of the highlights that I wanted to really spotlight on because this one is quite significant.
Mm-hmm.
So, Like a Dragon Ishin is coming out to the West for both PS4 and PS5.
Mm-hmm.
And for anyone who's not familiar with this particular game in the Yakuza or Like a Dragon as it's being renamed, um, chronology. This one takes place during the Meiji Reformation era, with the Shinsengumi police force during that time, and it basically casts all the Yakuza characters in essentially what could be called like a secret police force sort of role. Um, Really weird game, sort of a remix on history, sort of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But what makes this significant is that this game or this version of the game is going to be rebuilt from the ground up using the brand new Dragon engine. So it's not a lazy remaster of just taking the original Like a Dragon Ishin release from Japan and just kind of slapping some updated graphic assets. This is going to be a complete rebuild from the ground up, and this is huge because the original release, which was a launch PS4 game and a one of the few PS3 games that sort of closed out the PS3 generation. Mm-hmm. When it had came out, everyone was kind of wondering, well, just is Sega ever going to release this one? Because just it looks like a really cool game and everything, and Yakuza Fever is here, so maybe we'll get it. And it was just one of those things that it just never made the jump. So to see this actually make the jump and also get a significant remake sort of treatment to it is awesome to see. And for anyone who's doubting that this is a remake, here's something that will give you further corroborating evidence. Famitsu had talked to Sega about this, and in Japan, the game is being called Ryuga Gotoku Ishin Kiwami. And if you're familiar with the Kiwami name, that's because it was used in Yakuza Kiwami and Yakuza Kiwami 2, which were complete from the ground up remakes of Yakuza 1 and 2. So that should be exciting news for anyone who's a big Yakuza series fan.
Is this a sign that Yakuza is a bigger brand than I think most realize? Or is this a sign that maybe Japanese culture is more accepted than it used to be in the States.
In my opinion, I would say it's more just the Yakuza brand has finally found its footing.
Hmm.
Because during the PS2 era, the first two Yakuza games were Sega of America was trying to frame them as this is the Japanese interpretation of Grand Theft Auto, which it
Yep.
really wasn't.
No, it won't. No.
And of course, as a result, both games undersold massively in the West, and unfortunately, both games sort of became cult classics. So a lot of people who are just really into Japanese games would be like, "Oh yeah, you gotta play Yakuza." Yeah, I know. The advertising billed it as Grand Theft Auto, but it's totally not. Ignore that. Just play it for what it is, and you'll see that there's a great game in this. But in this modern PS4, PS5 era, Sega has really leaned real hard into just accepting Yakuza for what Yakuza is, which is great because it's paid off in spades. So I think that's why just they've just gone ahead and said, yeah, let's just go ahead and localize this game. Yeah, it's kind of niche, but there's such a strong fandom in the West that we can probably make a buck or two.
Okay. I mean, it's an interesting announcement. I'm definitely interested in it. Do you need I don't know if you've played it or not, but do you need a to be aware or familiar with the Yakuza series in order to play this, or is this something that you don't need that previous experience for?
So, full disclosure from me, I did import the original version of the game on that was released for PS4. Thankfully, you do not need any previous Yakuza series knowledge, especially since this takes place during the Meiji Reformation era. So the only thing that might give you an extra leg up on this game is if you have an appreciation for Japanese history. But even if you don't have that, it's still a very fun game. Just lots of intense action scenes and things like that. So if you liked the previous Yakuza games, then yeah, this is just more of the same, but in a completely different setting.
Okay. So let's move on. The next game, the new game that was shown was Pacific Drive. This was a weird one. From what it felt like a Back to the Future type game, but not about time. Okay, this is gonna sound weird. The way it looks like kind of a Back to the Future style. No, you know what? I'm throw out the Back to the Future thing. It, I think you said it best when we were watching the stream. It looks kind of driver simulatory or more walking simulatory, but you're in a car essentially.
Yeah, little. It was a little bit hard to kind of grasp what it was all about, but yeah, just there was some sort of apocalyptic event going on, and you're in this car that's got like all sorts of computers and whiz bang gadgets inside of it, and the only thing that I could ascertain from it is maybe it's some sort of walking simulator like Firewatch or something, but unfortunately, it's just a little too early to tell. So maybe when they get a little closer to announcing that the game is about to come out, maybe there might be some more details. So
Yeah.
definitely going to be curious on that one, and hoping that there's a little bit more substantial information.
Right. That is slated for next year. I believe that's what the. I think that was the release of the HGA. It was next year. Next one was Synduality, from Bandai Namco. It's a third-person shooter involving mechs and what looked to have some kind of farming in it. Essentially, I guess the shooting looked interesting, and it seemed to have an interesting story. I guess. But yeah, that's about it, really. That's
Yeah,
for 2023. Go ahead.
definitely curious on how that mining is going to work because, I mean, if it's mining for the sake of stuff like base management or something, okay, might be a neat thing. If it's going to be sort of like, oh, if you want to upgrade weapons, we're going to gate your weapon pathways to basically you having to go and farm up a whole bunch of materials and stuff, then might be a little bit of a grind. So that one I'll have to wait and see how that turns out.
Yeah. 2023 is when that is expected. Project Eve was announced, I think, in the last state of play. It looked interesting. It looked like it was a third person character action game of sorts.
Yeah, and this new trailer that was shown off actually gave it a new name. The name for the game has now been changed to Stellar Blade.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like a Devil May Cry-ish game set in a futuristic setting. You are I guess, a young girl in a bodysuit, apparently. But it looks interesting. Other than that, the theme that we're gonna have in the state of play is we don't really, of the new games, we don't really get a good glimpse as to what gameplay is gonna look like too much. But it looked interesting. So Project Eve, now Stellar Blade, they have a release date coming in 2023, I believe is what they said.
Yeah, so definitely looking forward to it, especially since it's developed by Hyuntae Kim, and I know in one of the PlayStation blogs when they had initially revealed Project Eve, I want to say a couple years ago, he had said that he has a deep love for games like Devil May Cry. While the combat looked interesting, and unfortunately there really wasn't any sort of like meters or mechanics that were easily discernible, the combat looks a little bit loose. But that isn't necessarily a bad thing, because at that point it would probably put the combat a little bit closer to something like Nier Automata. So for anyone who kind of liked the combat in Nier Automata, I would say maybe keep an eye on Stellar Blade.
Next game that was shown looks to be Rise of the Ronin. Looked interesting. Something that I would definitely be into. It's an open world samurai game. A lot different from... Well, Ghost of Tsushima was a samurai game, wasn't it? That was more of a...
That was more an open, like a massively open world.
Mhm.
The best way to kind of put the vibe of Rise of the Ronin is, for anyone who's played the Way of the Samurai games, it looks very similar to that. So
Yeah.
if you're into Way of the Samurai, then maybe keep an eye out for Rise of the Ronin.
Mhm. Looks good. They didn't show any gameplay. 2024 release window. This is one I didn't get why they announced this when it's nowhere near ready and they have no gameplay to show. I don't get with this one. It looks interesting, but they didn't really show much of anything else. So that was my issue. Like, why show this when it's nowhere near ready and you have nothing to show? But okay, fine. Looks interesting, but I want to see gameplay as soon as they can.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the next thing that was shown was the DualSense controller themed with the God of War Ragnarok sort of artwork on it and everything. And it's kind of funny because this was right after the female announcer says, "And we have one last announcement." And when this controller was being shown, I was kind of laughing my ass off because I was like, don't tell me that this is literally the last announcement for the day, because if this is, I can see so many people just getting angry going, okay, this is bullshit. You saved the last announcement for a fucking controller. Get the fuck out of here.
That would have been hilarious. But nope, that wasn't the last announcement. They showed a story trailer off for God of War Ragnarok. Is there anything more to be said about this game? So many people are excited about it, are really looking forward to playing it, and it's easy to see why. It looks great. The last game did really well, both gameplay-wise and sales-wise. So at this point, like, I don't see the point of telling people, hey, this is coming out. They all know. So I don't know why this was here, but it looked good. It looked good. So
Yeah, my assumption is this is just kind of par for the course for the hype cycle of, hey, we gotta keep the hype going, keep everyone going. Okay, gotta go and pre-order this. So,
yeah.
but that's my presumption on the matter.
Yeah. Aside from that, there were two PSVR 2 games announced. Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge. I didn't even realize that they announced this previously. But yeah, they showed a bunch of different gameplay on that. And a game called Demio, which I guess is a tabletop RPG style game, which I gotta admit looked interesting. But for to get a PSVR game, or a system, I don't. That could easily be like a table that could easily be something you get put on a tablet. It's not necessary to put on a VR game unless they do something drastically different with it. I don't understand why they did that. And then the other thing we need to mention is that Hogwarts Legacy had a trailer. Look, I am interested in the game, but I will be honest. The more I see it, the less and less excited I get. Yeah, I will still end up playing it, but the more and more they show, the more I'm like, you're not. This is making me less excited for the game.
And I will make a honorable mention for worst announcement of this presentation, and that is the PlayStation Stars
I
program.
was gonna get to that, but yes, talk a little about that.
So, for background, a couple months ago, PlayStation had made some sort of blog announcement saying, "Hey, we want to reward gamers for putting their time and energy into some of our games, unlocking achievements and stuff like that." And the way this program was originally built, it sounded like it was going to be something like the Club Nintendo sort of things, where you could earn points and then redeem those points for things like um, physical knickknacks, tchotchkes, and limited edition posters, and even alternate art covers for your games. And when that announcement had initially dropped, everyone was like, okay, kind of cool, because the Club Nintendo stuff isn't too great anymore. If PlayStation can knock this out of the park, consider me interested. I'd be willing to try a game out to knock out an achievement to get a cool physical thing. Well, today's announcement changed that, because instead of the possibility of getting physical stuff, it's now digital statues now. So some of the stuff that they were showing was like you could get like a digital statue of a PS3, a Pocket Station, and all this other stuff. And just when I saw this, I was like, oh god, just you had an opportunity to kind of show up Nintendo on for their physical rewards program, and now that you're basically doing something that's almost the equivalent of just worthless 3D models that you can pop on and view, I assume, in the PlayStation app or your PS5.
Yeah.
I was just like, wow, just way to drop a real stinker. I just don't see a lot of people being interested in going, yeah, let me play this one game to get a digital PS3 statue.
Yeah. I wonder if this is going to be part of a bigger thing. Like when I saw this, I was like, if they still had PlayStation Home, I could actually see this being a successful thing. But I don't think they're doing that. So this was a not an interesting announcement. And I think if people actually cared, I think they'd be pissed. But I don't hear anyone talking about it. I've been on Twitter for the past hour trying to see reactions from the state of play, and none of them have been talking about this. So I think I'd be surprised if this actually comes out, if they just don't kill it because no one's interested. So, well, anyway, that's it with me. I wasn't interested in the first place, and now I'm really not interested. So, yeah, what are you gonna do? Overall, what did you think of the state of play?
I thought it was all right. It definitely wasn't as disappointing as the rumors were leading up to be.
Right.
But I could definitely see where some extremely fanatical PlayStation fans might have been disappointed, because I know there were a whole bunch of really wacky rumors swirling about this event, and I think one of them was supposedly Bloodborne 2 was going to be announced at this, and
Oh yeah.
I was just like, yeah, that's way too moonshot. There's just no way.
Oh yeah. I think they curbed everyone's expectations because they all expect big, huge announcements on every single one of these things. Like you said, like Bloodborne 2, like is what they were, or a Bloodborne remake. So those feelers started going out to basically say, I don't think those games are happening. So, but I thought it was a decent showcase. So I didn't have any issues with the showcase at all. Some duds, some things that I sat there going, why are you announcing this when like the Rise of the Ronin one, I don't get why they announced it now when it's 2 years away.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
That one was way too concepty, in my opinion.
Uh.
And yeah, I agree. Just way too soon. You've got nothing substantial other than, hey, here's where the story is being set at. It's going to be set in this particular time period of Japan. It's just like, yeah, okay, that's neat, but you should have really saved this for later on when you have something a little bit more concrete to show off.
absolutely, I agree. Hello, everyone, and thank you for listening and watching this podcast segment of the Capital Games Podcast. Me and Zero thank you for clicking on the video and watching. If you want, we have another video on the screen right now where you can listen to if you are interested. We also want to let you know that we do a movie podcast called the Capital Games Movie Club. This week, we are reviewing A Beautiful Mind. Last week, we did V for Vendetta. So if you're interested in either of those, or any of our opinions on the movies that we have reviewed, go ahead and click on it on the screen right there. Thank you again for listening and watching. I hope to hear from you next time. Bye now.